Today we're going to talk about the budget released in March 2024, announced by Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, and what all of that means to property investors and why that's important to you. Welcome back to Property Insight. My name's Neil Harding.
And my name's Mark Ashworth. So the budget, obviously I think this is the final budget before the next election, so we were expecting some lots of announcements, tax cuts, all sorts of things to try and encourage people to vote for them. But it's been relatively flat, I think, certainly from a property investment perspective.
There's been some things in there. I think the bit that was interesting was what wasn't in there. And you're right, there was a lot that wasn't in there. And all of the rumours around a 99% mortgage, that was in the news for months leading up to that, to make accessible finance for first-time buyers, really stimulate the housing market, and everyone was expecting, same old story, a retail budget, in the run-up 6 months before an election, a good news story, and that 99% mortgage just never happened.
Yeah, we're obviously going to stick this to property investment angle, so we can sort of describe what's been going on and how that's affected property investment. I think the furnished holiday let market has been hit rather hard. Obviously, there were lots of people who were doing single lets that decided that in their own name that they couldn't offset all the mortgage interest, so turned their properties into furnished holiday lets or serviced accommodation, as it's commonly known. And that's been now taken from under their feet. But it doesn't come in until April 25, right? So we've got some time, I think, there to
That's correct.
Make some adjustment for those people. But yeah, and I think also, I guess, regulation meant that something had to give somewhere, because there was lots of areas in the country, pockets of, let's say, touristy areas, which were being hit by people just, creating lots of holiday lets, where actually they're taking away from, family homes and that kind of stuff. So I guess we're trying to address that issue a little bit as well.
What was really interesting to me was somehow or another marketeers have described the tax advantageous environment for furnished holiday lets as being abolished. And I was thinking, what tax advantageous? I think it's a tax normal environment for furnished holiday lets, and kind of, a lot of being able to deduct your interest against your rental income is what you should be able to do. And the Section 24 rules that apply to single lets that will now apply to furnished holiday lets it just means that it's going to be a tax disadvantageous as buy to let single lets. And anyway, there we go.
And obviously, one thing also, if you're relatively new to property, it's well worth saying that while Section 24 is an issue, it's only an issue if you're a 40% taxpayer. It's really important to be clear that you're still able to deduct mortgage interest at 20%. You just can't deduct it at 40%.
And we'll do a separate video just on the tax impact on furnished holiday lets, because it's where we'll deep dive a bit more, because it's quite complicated. But that's the headline of that. Yeah. Also, capital gains tax. For those who own property in their own name, who sell a residential investment property, capital gains tax applies, and capital gains tax on residential property is at the rate of either 18% if you're a basic rate taxpayer, or what was previously 28% if you're a higher rate taxpayer. And that 28% is going to become 24% from the 6th of April 24.
Okay.
So maybe encouraging people to sell some properties, but to be honest, is it really going to?
I don't think it'll make an awful lot of difference. I mean, obviously it's a higher tax than on disposing of other assets. So normally it's typically 20%, whereas property has been, unfairly at 28%, I'd argue. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to make a massive difference, I don't think.
Other things, so multiple dwellings relief, which relates to stamp duty.
That's a big one.
That's been abolished with effect from 1st of June 2024. Again, we're going to do a separate video on that, because that deserves a bit more of a deep dive. But
so effectively, if you buy multiple units, then they'd treat stamp duty a little bit differently in the terms that they would take an average. So therefore, ultimately, you'd be paying less stamp duty if you were to buy a block of flats, for example, and it can be as small as 3, 4, 5 units. So 6 or more units in one block or one purchase is then treated as a commercial purchase, and therefore you'll only pay commercial stamp duty rates, which is still beneficial. But it's the multiple dwellings in terms of, isn't it buying them all in one transaction or something? Yeah,
and it's important that it's dwellings,
right?
So for example, you could have one title, you could have one block of flats,
one freehold,
and it could have 2, 3, 4, 5, however many dwellings that there are inside. It could be bed sits, whatever they are. So we've got a handful of things that are relevant, I think, to people who are investors, not necessarily property investors, or maybe relevant to people who are high net worth individuals that are of interest. So we'll go through these with a bit more brevity. So there's a new ISA, which is quite interesting. So there'll be a new UK ISA focused on investing in UK businesses. And what this means is there'll be an extra £5,000 tax-free ISA allowance on top of the $20,000 that you get at the moment for anyone that wants to invest in this particular new type of UK ISA. So it's UK businesses. And it's going to be made available through the NSI platform, launched in April 24. So I'm sure we'll find out more about that as the weeks roll on. But the bit that I thought was quite interesting about the ISA news was that actually you're going to be able to have multiple subscriptions in the year and make partial transfers of your ISA pot between different types of ISA. So there'll be more flexibility in a way that we've not seen previously. So before, like if you sort of subscribe to a cash ISA, then you got to put up to your 20k in a cash ISA in the year. I think what's going to change is that actually you could put 10k into a cash ISA, but 10k into a stocks and shares ISA in the same year, or then move them in and around as your needs change, which I think is really a great thing.
Yeah, I think they're obviously trying to encourage people to save and to invest, which I think is great.
The child benefit charge, so for people that have children and claiming child benefit, you probably are already aware that once you earn more than £60,000, once one person in the household earns more than £60,000, it disappears completely.
Yeah.
It tapers away from 50,000 up to 60. After 60, it's gone. And so you're in this horrendous marginal tax rate between 50,000 and 60,000 of earnings. That's now going to be changed to 60,000 and 80,000, which is something to think about for tax planning. Other things, VAT, the registration threshold's changed from 85 to £90,000, so it's going up. If you're a service accommodation operator, that might be relevant to you, or if you're in property development. Employee class 1 NI is going to drop from 10% to 8%. So if you have a business and you employ people, that's relevant. Crypto assets, again, if you're an investor, you might be interested to know that crypto assets are going to need their own separate disclosure on your tax return for the first time.
Sorry, is that an investment or?
Wow, yeah, is it?
Or is it a gamble?
Yeah, well, it could be. So lots of things there that are relevant, but I think the headlines are for investors are probably around furnished holiday lets tax regime completely changing, or what they're calling advantageous rules are disappearing, and multiple dwellings relief being scrapped. So that's why we're going to do separate videos on that and do a deeper dive. But they're the headlines.
Yeah, so it seems like it's relatively a non, for normal sort of property investors that are doing single lets, HMOs, that kind of stuff, it doesn't seem to have had too much effect. So no news is good news, as they say in the property world, because usually they come and tax the hell out of us investors, don't they?
They do.
So yeah, all good. So we do hope that you found that insightful. Please like, subscribe, and share the content so that we can produce more videos like this for people interested in property investment. So thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.